And I will call the May 11th remote meeting of the Conference Committee on House File 4366, the Omnibus Agriculture, Housing, and Broadband to order. This meeting will be held in accordance with House Rule 10.01. Senator Westrom and I have agreed to cover a number of items in the Ag article where we have shared priorities and get a better sense of the obvious places where we might be able to get to agreement. There are 12 items on the comparison spreadsheet where we both include funding for a program, but at different levels. There are another 2 provisions that we don't fund the same program, but we fund 2 programs that have similar goals. So there's some shared priorities here. I've asked Mr. Sullivan from House Research to introduce each of these shared priorities, after which Vice President or Vice Chair Vang and I will talk about how we reached the House position, and then we'll defer to the Senate so we can understand where the Senate is coming from. So members, please let me know if you have any questions or comments along the way. I'm just going to remind everyone that the House goes back into session at 3:30. So I don't know if we're going to get through this agenda or not, but at 3:30 it'll be a hard stop. Mr. Sullivan, please identify yourself for the record and please begin.
Mr. Chair and members, I'm Colby Sullivan with the House Research Department. The first item for both the House and Senate are proposing funding is for grants to the University of Minnesota for the Forever Green initiative. If you're working from the spreadsheet, that's on the Ag and Broadband spreadsheet, it's line 9. The House is proposing $6.5 million in fiscal year 23 and establishing a base or ongoing funding level of $1.5 million per year. And the Senate is proposing $200,000 one time for this purpose.
Okay. Sam, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Members, the original proposal came in at about 20 million. However, we took a more measured approach by providing a 5 million for lab equipment and then 1.5 million in fiscal year funding for research, and then 1.5 million per year for ongoing research in this area. This area has multiple returns. We think it will bring opportunities for new markets, positive impact on soil health, the water quality, and there's pretty much broad, widespread support on this funding. That will be all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Westrom. That's our take on the House take on this. This is one of your biggest priorities. Can you tell us about the Senate position?
Mr. Chair, the Senate number is, I mean, we're quite a bit lower. This is a program that we've looked at with some interest or some option for developing some more markets and practices that can work with traditional farming in some cases, but shift to others. But we do have $2 million. I think it's about 2 million. I'd have to verify that in another bill, the Environmental Trust Fund, funding some of this in addition to the 2 million or 200,000 here. So this is probably just one of several places where we've worked within a $5 million one-time budget priority target versus the House is at 60 million. So some of this might just have to be, we're going to have to just agree on a smaller number if we're going to continue with some of these. But the Senate is open to the Environmental Trust Fund number being part of the discussion, as we have funding over in that bill as well. And that would be another source for funding. I know the Environmental Trust Fund has funded this program before, some of the research and other things that have led up to the point where they are today. So just food for thought, areas we can find some mutual agreement on, if we can keep all of that in mind.
Okay, thank you. I do have concerns with the relying on the another committee to fulfill some of our goals. So I guess we'll have to keep that in mind as we move along. So we have cover crop development grants on line 10. Any comments on that, Mr. Sullivan?
Mr. Chair, just to note that the House position is $9 million one time, and the Senate is $50,000 one time.
Okay, that's it. I guess the original proposal came in at 10 million, although we'd like to include some funding in the tails. That wasn't an option, so we provided a lump sum in fiscal 23 and made it available for a longer period of time. We think this is going to allow for time necessary to work on the commercialization of these emerging crops. Like Forever Green, we think this will serve multiple benefits and of helping soil health, but also provide new markets for farmers and make it more financially feasible to use these cover crops. Excuse me. Senator Westrom, any take on that?
Mr. Chair, just similar comments as the other as prior on Forever Green. You know, on one hand, these two programs try to accomplish similar type of goals with cover crops and working into the agriculture practices. But the dollars, the bigger dollars the Senate has carried is in the Environmental Trust Fund as well. So we're open for that discussion as well as we try to develop these types of protective, preservation, conservation ways to enhance the land and natural resources in Minnesota. That may be a very valuable place to help spur this idea along with some meaningful dollars. Otherwise, you know, we're going to have to come to a point here where we got to just decide what our number is, and then which of these programs we might want to pursue further if that's the case. But just to ad lib a little more on your prior comment, you know, we would have probably some opportunity to include some of those dollars in this bill. It's not another committee. The Environmental Trust Fund is its own separate bill, and but it doesn't have to be passed in just that bill. So there's a way to do that. As I've talked to you about the farmer drought relief, if the final resolution has some dollars in for the DNR trees in addition to that issue, that would be a source that, for example, could be adopted, and those dollars could be allocated out of the Environmental Trust Fund as well. Several of these are very, very environmentally friendly type practices that are being looked at to try to help steer and move in the direction of these environmentally enhancing practices. And so we should keep that in mind as we consider kind of wrapping up the priorities.
Okay. Thank you. The regional food system report on line 17 had funding at $10,000. Chair Vang, you want to comment on this?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So we have about the same amount. There's a slight difference in the wording. This is as a result of continued conversation with Representative Lippert and advocates and MDA. I think it'd be good to defer to MDA to speak on this, some of their thoughts to Mr. Chair.
Okay, I guess we've got a host of department pros. If I guess Andrea Vobble, Commissioner Vobble, would I like to direct the question to the proper person? Or somebody could speak up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. This is Paul Huguenin with the Ag Marketing and Development Division at the Department of Agriculture. For the record, I'm the Director of the Ag Marketing Development Division. So as this language moved forward, we met with some of the key stakeholders who testified in both House and Senate committees. And basically the difference is the House language is a little more specific in that it references a major 3-year study that we're in the middle of. It's federally funded. We're contracting with the University of Minnesota Applied Economics Department. And so rather than create a separate study, this builds on that and simply adds recommendations and has us do kind of an interim report on where that study is. The stakeholders who testified were fine with that. So that's basically where we're at with it and why the language is a little bit different.
Thank you, Mr. Hugan. Senator Westrom, any comments on this?
So, Mr. Chair, we've got similar language here. One of the questions we would have is maybe just getting a little more specificity about what the deliverable will be on such a report. And so I think we need to just have better understanding of what we're actually going to get as we consider this further.
Thank you, Mr. Hugan. And is there anything you can help us with this at this time, or would you like to study on that a little bit?
Sure, maybe, basically we'll get at all the things the testifiers asked for. So updates on things like economic impact. We're surveying producers, so farmers, as well as retailers and people who are purchasing from them. So it will be real comprehensive. It's a 3-year project. We're halfway through it. So the report would detail everything we've done so far, make recommendations on any gaps that are appearing that maybe the study isn't going to get at. So legislators will have an idea of, are there things missing that you'll want to ask us to do to build on that report?
Okay, thank you. We're looking forward to absorbing as much information as you can send our way. We have the Agri Livestock Processing Facility grants on line 20. The House is coming in at $3 million for fiscal year 23, and the Senate $700,000 in fiscal year 23. This is I guess another area where we share some high interest in this in the grants. I guess we view the processing grants as a critical component in addressing the shortage of meat processing options available to the farmers and ranchers, along with the meat cutting education program, the USDA equivalent inspectors, and the meat safety grants. With that said, I think the processing facility grants are the highest priority for us in this area. And it appears the Senate has the meat cutting education as the higher priority. It kind of lays it out a little bit, but Senator Westrom, anything to share on this one?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I guess we just need to work on dollars. Meat processing and meat processing grants are both areas of priority that we've tried to find ways to enhance. So like other things, it's going to probably come back to some numbers, and if we can decide which areas get the funding, that's probably something you and I need to, we as a committee, but need to figure out parameters so we can just decide where we would try to move on some of these dollars. Because
yeah, thank you, Senator. I'm looking forward to that. So on line 29, it addresses the emerging farmers. The House is at 2.6 million for fiscal year 23. The Senate is at 300,000. Chair Vang, any comments on this?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. This is one of my priorities. I recognize that the Senate gives preference to organizations that primarily serve African immigrants and refugees and African American populations. On the House side, we kept it more inclusive to include all emerging farmers. And I believe in Minnesota statute, it covers farmers of color to women, veterans, and young and beginning farmers. So that would be just the difference in terms of funding and the language of who the funding goes to.
Okay, Senator Westrom, I hope you're open to working on some of that verbiage there. Can you tell us about your conversations in the Senate?
Mr. Chair, and I guess one of the questions I might just bring up right now, there's another line item you guys have on loan or down payment assistance for beginning farmers.
Mhm.
Maybe if we could just hear from you on that and how that blends into this. The dollars we have originally kind of started as an idea of some down payment assistance for African farmers. And I guess we're ultimately trying to figure out what the dollars would be best used towards to help promote specialty farming or beginning farmers, emerging farmers, if we fund these areas. But if Senator Representative Vang or the House could talk about maybe that down payment assistance while we're on this topic, because I think they kind of work a little bit together, or possibly could work together. So some insights on that would be helpful for us.
Sure. Would staff want to weigh in on this at all? And then we can get some more comments from Chair Vang. Maybe not.
I think probably just to Representative Vang.
Okay, Chair Vang, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and Senator Westrom. So the farmland down payment assistance is actually a separate line item. It's not specific to farmers of color, although it does go hand in hand. It can benefit emerging farmers, beginning farmers as well. I don't know, Mr. Chair, we did set, after we've gone through the provisions that are in both bills, we are going to present house only provision, and one of that house only provision is a farmland down payment assistance. Do you want me to talk about that now, or should we wait until we've gone through funding? And
Please go ahead. I think we have the senator's curiosity up.
okay, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So regarding the farm land down payment assistance, it's as I said before, it's a separate line item. And first, I would like to thank my Senate author, Senator Dornick, for your support in carrying this bill. So I'm glad that we're able to share a concern about the state of our farmers and how we can continue to support beginning farmers. So specifically, this farmland down payment assistance addresses what we all been seeing on a national level, and in Minnesota, a shrinking number of farms. We know that this can be due to various factors, from declining commodity prices, trade wars, severe weather, and the aging health of the farmers. We have strong federal data that we are losing farms and losing farmland, and the cost of acquiring land for new farmers remains prohibitively high. We know that older farmers are not being replaced by younger farmers as they retire. The average age of farmers in Minnesota continues to increase as well. According to the latest USDA census of agriculture data, 59% of farmers in Minnesota were aged 55 or older, and that's up from 38% in 2002. The current average age for a Minnesota farmer is over 56 years old. And so nationally, farmers over age 65 own 40% of the land and outnumber farmers below 35 by a factor of 6 to 1. We've taken important bipartisan steps in the past to assist beginning farmers, but these bad trend lines continue to accelerate. And so this bill, the Farmland Down Payment Assistance, is another approach to reduce barriers for new farmers to enter the field, and I hope to have bipartisan support in that effort. We have a historic farming crisis, and I hope we can use a small portion of our historic budget to help address this issue. This bill is essentially meant to keep farmland in the hands of farmers. I'm hearing from farmers who want to sell their land but are getting offers from investors who are living from Florida. Farmers want to transition their land to the next farmer who would take the land and its productivity for the state. And not only do beginning farmers compete with more established farmers.
Vang?
Yes.
So
Senator Westrom?
Representative Vang, Mr. Chair, the genesis of this is more to just all beginning farmers. Is that correct? I don't. Some of those statistics I don't need to have you read us, but your intention of this is not targeting just emerging farmers. It would be all walks of agriculture and farming in Minnesota.
Chair Vang?
Yeah. Mr. Chair and Senator Westrom, the bill currently reads that farmers, the definition that the bill is based off is from the beginning farmers definition, I think, and I believe Mr. Sullivan can confirm this, that the definition I use is based off the beginning farmers definition, and it, it also ensures that farmers grosses no more than who are eligible for this grant grosses no more than $250,000 per year from the sale of farm products, and that's the gist of who can qualify for this grant.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, any clarification necessary on this?
No clarification, Mr. Chair and members. Representative Vang is correct that her definition of eligible farmer for purposes of the Farm Down Payment Assistance Program is very similar to the beginning farmer tax credit definition.
Okay, thank you all for that clarity. Representative Tice, please. You're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering, when we talk about how we're going to pay the grant back after 5 years, how are we going to ensure that that's going to happen?
Okay, legitimate question to Chair Vang.
Mr. Chair and Representative Tice, so I believe when we go through the process, these are farmers that are experienced and have, I'm sure that they have been vetted through to ensure that the worst case scenario doesn't happen. This is just in case if worst case scenario happens that there is some accountability attached to this. And so I think, Representative Tice, if you think that there is something more that we can do to improve this area, I'm definitely open to making that improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess a follow-up would be, I guess when we talk about making sure that, they pay the grant back, that, we do have some buy-in from somebody to make sure that that happens. Otherwise, I think it could cause some fraudulent use of the monies if we don't show that we're serious about this. And I don't want just anybody to apply for a grant and say, I'm going to farm, and then it doesn't happen. And then we just kind of say, oh, darn. I think it's important to make sure that there's some integrity with the grant, that it does get paid back. And so I'm always up for some discussions about that. I really think that in order to keep the integrity of the grant there, we need to make sure that we're serious about what we say we're going to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Representative
Chair Vang,
Tice,
go ahead.
I would just say there is definitely some buy-in attached to this bill. Farmers do have to provide a one-to-one match in order to get the grants here. So there is definitely buy-in for the farmers to participate in this program.
Senator Westrom, anything further on this topic?
Not right now, Mr. Chair. I think that's helpful.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you very much. Okay, animal disease preparedness and response. We got the Ag Emergency Fund on line 31. The House is at 4.5 in fiscal 22. And of that 1.5 for the VDL on line 32. And the Senate's at 500,000 in fiscal year 22. So this is a big issue for the state of Minnesota, and we have to be positioned to respond to these ag emergencies. The immediate issues, high pathogenic avian influenza. Ooh, I used to be good at that. But also make sure we're prepared to respond to other emergencies that are going to come our way. For example, the African swine fever, CWD, and things we don't know about yet. The department has indicated they need about 4.5 million total. And I know we've already provided $1 million, but we do want to make sure that the department has adequate funds before we adjourn. So what are you talking about over in the Senate in regards to this emergency funding, Senator?
so Chair Sundin, the Senate has some funding for these two areas as well. I think we're at 500,000 on the emergency responses, and in addition to the $1 million we've already passed. We also have some money in the drought relief bill. So I don't know if now is a good time to touch base on the drought relief. Some of this works hand in hand, or whether the money over there is approved and passed in addition to this, or we also have $1 million in the drought relief bill for the VDL. So I know we had made a response to your last offer a little over a week ago. I don't know if we've got any more movement on that. I think on the ag side, we're pretty close. So if we could ever get those separated, we could probably would help us wrap this up. But I don't know if you have any comments on that. But the other question I might have is with Commissioner Peterson here, maybe we could take a moment just to get an update on the avian influenza situation. This heat this week is going to probably be helpful. We could keep the heat going. I think that would be get us marching in the right direction for getting rid of this virus for this season at least. But maybe we should take time to just find out a brief update of where we're at on birds and any more positive tests coming back for farms. I know, I think he said recently it's been more backyard flocks and not as many commercial, which has kind of switched in the last week or two. And then where are we at on money? What have they spent of the 400,000 or 500,000 that was in the account, as well as the $1 million we passed? And maybe we could get a lay of the land to know better if 2 million's right, 3 million, 4 million, whatever, where we're at. Maybe we should get that right now, and then we can talk a little further.
Great. Before we go to the commissioner, I will say I'm taking a different tack on the drought relief funding. I'm still looking for $5 million from other sources to satisfy the needs of the tree seedling disaster. So I'm taking a little different tack on that than the senator. So be aware of that, and I'll continue to look for another $5 million. Commissioner Peterson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members, Tom Peterson, Commissioner of Minnesota Department of Agriculture. I'm going to ask Lucy Hunt, who is on, to give a quick update on the situation, and I'll cover the money after she's done. Lucy, if that's okay, Mr. Chair.
Please, Lucy.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone, Chair Sundin and Senator Westrom. My name is Lucia Hunt. I'm the Director of the Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, also serving as Incident Commander for the HPAI response. So just a quick overview. Right now we've got 58 commercial premises that have been confirmed infected farms. We've got an additional 15 backyard, what I'll call backyard premises, some smaller flocks. We have a unified command going on with the USDA. We're stationed out in Wilmer, Minnesota. Right now, there are 127 people involved in the response. We've got a pretty robust communications system going on with our stakeholders, emergency managers, state agencies, industry partners, legislators, and other stakeholders. So our premises are mostly commercial turkey farms. 51 of those. We've got 4 commercial turkey breeders, 1 egg layer, 1 broiler operation, and then, I'm sorry, I misspoke, it's 13 backyards. And that's covering 24 counties, so quite a wide swath across Minnesota, from basically Rochester up to Detroit Lakes. And so it's quite a large geographic area. We've got a lot of work still happening on the ground. The depopulation work is obviously the most high profile, but once that's all finished, there's several steps before producers can restock their barns with new birds. So we're working our way through those processes using our federal partners as well. And I will call out the MPTL and the VDL labs. They have been running, they've run up over 7,000 PCR tests so far in the last 7 weeks. And that represents over 84,000 birds that have been tested. They are open 7 days a week. We are operating 7 days a week. And so it's just a real busy period for us. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll take any other questions for more specific information, I guess.
Thank
can-
you. Commissioner, follow up, please.
Yep. And so back on so a couple things too, I just wanted to mention is, we did see high path cases well through May and even into June last year. And even though it's warming up, we're seeing warmer states contract the virus too as well. And so we'll have to see it's acting a little differently. And so we're doing our best guess estimate, too, on this. And we do appreciate the quick work on the $1 million. On the $1 million, we had roughly about 300,000 in the account when we asked for the $1 million. Last I had checked with our staff and everything that's working on this, we had allocated over 1.4 million. So we're underwater in what we owe, but because those, we owe 30 days from when the invoice comes in, we are able to step that out too and everything. Some of the things, so we estimate needing about another 3.2 million, somewhere in there. We'll continue to meet and update you as we go, but that testing is something that the people have wanted to pay for. Right now, the testing is mounting up and the bill is there at the lab and will have to be paid by somebody. It's not being covered by the USDA this time. And so we want to be able to provide farmers and the businesses that to cover those. And we estimate that to be 1.75 million for drinker swab and surveillance testing. Right now, some of the farms are coming out of quarantine and they need to do surveillance testing if they're in the surveillance zones. We estimate $1 million for Board of Animal Health and MDA staffing. Most of that is overtime staffing. We're not adding people, but we have people working incredibly long hours. Keep in mind, just as the agencies, we're short people, and we ask staff to leave their other positions and work on these, sometimes long hours. And as you say, Easter, weekends, Mother's Day, those are all very important. For mapping is another important piece and tool of this, and that is a couple $100,000. And then 1.45 million for depopulation is our best estimate. The USDA does pay probably about 80% of it, but this includes the compost, disposal, cleaning, disinfectant, supplies for depopulation, compost material, foam, etc. We will get hopefully reimbursed for a lot of this, but we have to pay for those bills before we get reimbursed, and it can take a while to get reimbursed from the USDA. I would say make a case for this too. If we're short or the legislature puts in more money, it's a good thing right now with a surplus to put some money in this as we stare down African swine fever. Or there's also a thought that this virus could hang around unlike 2015 and reoccur in the fall. So appreciate your consideration and glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Any comments, Senator Westrom?
So Commissioner Peterson, the 1.75 million you talked about with drinker swabs and that, can you explain that a little bit more? And you said this time there's not reimbursement from the USDA on those types of measures. I didn't, you could explain that a little bit more.
Commissioner Peterson, please.
There's two different tests there. Lucy might be able to explain it better than I can. But the one the industry has talked to me about is their surveillance testing was covered in 2015 and is not being covered this time. And we're still kind of negotiating with the USDA and everything, but this is something where, farms are testing quite often and they are expensive tests, but they need to move their birds and they need to test to get out of it. And Mr. Chair, if it's all right to have Lucy just add anything to that, because she might have more.
Please do, Ms. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there's a lot of testing that's going on. I mentioned the over 7,000 tests that have gone through already. Those are in a couple of different, there's some regulatory tests that we need to make sure that our farms are clear of infection. And there's also some pre-market movement testing. So those are the two categories. Sometimes they work together and they can be kind of run simultaneously, but the issue is that even that pre-market testing will find HPAI, and so that's something that we can still count as part of our surveillance, although it's marked for pre-movement.
Well, thank you for your work on this, Senator Westrom. Anything further?
Mr. Chair, Lucia, so the testing in the water systems or the water, can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I know that was one of the authorizations we gave for the emergency response to test. How does that work, and has it helped pre-identify farms before they have as much of a breakout in other barns, or what does that do? And is that kind of a newer test that we're trying this time as opposed to 2015? And has it proven to be helpful, or is it just telling us the same thing, just in a different phase of the process? I guess any comments on what we've learned, what it's doing, how has it helped or not helped, would be helpful.
Okay, Ms. Hunt, please.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that question, Senator. I'm not a veterinarian or a lab person, so I'm going to do my best to answer this question. The drinking swab samples are a relatively new sampling type. Those are done. They're not an official test, so they don't. They basically, what they're used for is giving us a heads up. They give us a heads up, a few hours notice that some samples maybe came up positive on the drinker swabs. They'll be run through the MPTL, and and most likely will be coming up as positive premises. So, so that's what I'm seeing out in the field for this year's go around with those new labs or those new drinker swab samples.
Thank you so much, Senator.
And Ms. Hunt, just to understand it a little better from what your understanding is, a few hours heads up would be followed up with tests of some birds then, or that's when they might start seeing more visual signs of birds being affected once they've gotten a confirmation back on the water drinking cup swabs?
Ms. Hunt, please.
Thank you, Chair Sundin. Yes, Senator Westrom, they do allow us, like I mentioned, those are not official tests and official swabs. So yes, once those do come back positive on the drinker swabs, then we'll be able to get, then the producers will be able to get official samples drawn from the flock and sent into the MPTL.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. That's great. If we can move on, we'd like to talk about the Ag Innovation Campus on that soil crush line 36. The House has got 1.5 million in 23, and the Senate looks like 500,000 in fiscal year 22. We looked at the Ag Innovation Campus as part of our innovation package, including the RE facility, lab upgrades, the adjustments to the bioincentives, and the next item on the list. When this was presented in the House, the point was made that there was good private support and that any state contribution would help cover the overages would help. I don't know what the correct number is, I guess, but I guess we see this as a good public-private partnership, and I think we can keep using some of the budget situation to help cover at least a portion of the cost overages associated with the COVID situation. So it's kind of where we're coming from at the House. Senator Westrom, any comments on that?
No, Mr. Chair. Just similar to other comments, dollars will become the constraining factor on several items here as we just figure out where to land.
Okay, we're running up against the clock, but if we could talk about the aquaculture plan that's noted on line 37, the House is at 100,000 in fiscal year 23, and the Senate's at 10,000. We're back to the numbers non-matching again, but this is an issue we worked on over the interim, and I think we would have multiple benefits coming from this. You know, we're expanding new markets, addressing food accessibility. This would fit into the urban ag plans, and it would open up new opportunities for these emerging farmers that we're talking about. Senator Westrom, you're quite a little bit lower number than us. Are you envisioning a smaller scope study, or what's your intentions with less money?
Mr. Chair, maybe the department could just comment about, you know, what would they envision? 100,000 might not be realistic. What gets done for 10,000, or if we can't do 100,000, is it better to not do anything? And maybe what is kind of the deliverable that would turn into, you know, actual farming opportunities? They could just comment on that. I think it'd probably be good for all of us to absorb as we contemplate this provision.
Commissioner Peterson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. You know, aquaculture in Minnesota is something, you know, I think we're kind of bullish on. It's been around forever. And, you know, we're seeing whether it's trying to lure true shrimp back to Minnesota or build out our, you know, shortage that we have right now in bait to tilapia and trout. And there's just so many opportunities going on right now that, I think a report's a good idea. My easy thing for that, for $10,000, you get a $10,000 report. Like that's a low end on, but I appreciate having that in there. We write a lot of reports every year. And so I think that, our deliverable in the report would be, what would some possible outcomes, what does the industry need? The more dollars we have, the more we can assign somebody to that. So I think somewhere in the middle there or something would be helpful. And I think it helps jumpstart our aquaculture plans. We don't have necessarily a dedicated staff person here at the department that works on aquaculture, especially. We kind of depends on what they're looking for, different things. And so I think it's a great opportunity. Again, as you've been saying, on a lot of these things would come down to numbers, but I think that, we'd be excited about having some specific deliverables about what kind of legislation, what kind of grant programs they might need, what's already available for them, and what the process is. It's something also tribal governments are very interested in. So I think it's a good opportunity.
Okay, anything further, Senator?
No, Mr. Chair, other than, and I know in a prior line item, we had the $10,000 dealing with the foods report that Mr. Hoganen talked about. This is quite a bit more money involved, so I guess we have to just figure out, how much more extra is in this report, and if we have to, what we have to, decide to prioritize as we look at even reports, and how does, some of this, does it fit into other emerging farmer options, or should this maybe be done before we put as much into emerging farms? If we have some good opportunities here, maybe that helps us find pathways for other emerging farming opportunities in the future once we get this report.
Okay, I'm just going to mark where we're at on my agenda. If we get back to this agenda, which I would really like to do, that'd be terrific. But right now we're running up against the clock and the House is going into session. I apologize, but I don't schedule the House sessions. So we're cutting it short today, and looking forward to talking with the senator, probably offline, and see what your intentions are for tomorrow, and we'll keep everyone informed. Any closing comments, Senator Westrom?
So, Mr. Chair, yeah, why don't we try to talk offline and figure out? I think we got quite a few of the same or similar areas covered here, and I guess we need to figure out, do we start with seems like a $5 million number? We could at least start from there, or agree with that. And if you had 5 million, where would you put it, and where would the Senate put it, as we try to agree on similar things, and then go from there? But otherwise, if we have such a big number disparity, it gets to be hard to negotiate some of these things, because as much as they might be good, there's just only so much we can get done. But lastly, do we want to maybe quick move be the same language, Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, just to get that done?
I really do have to go, but the gavel's yours tomorrow, so then we can keep moving forward. Pick the format. We can continue to work off of this agenda if you want, or whatever. But right now, I'm sorry, but we'll have to adjourn.
Sounds good. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and talent. We're adjourned.